Universe with your hostesses, Ashley and Dawn. And today we are coming to you with the most buzzworthy book that's happening right now all over your newsstands. We are going to discuss House of Sky and Breath by the one and only Sarah J. Maas herself. This is book 2 in the Crescent City series, and we are going to preface the start of our podcast by stating this is going to be spoilery. If you have not read this book, we're not going to apologize for the fact that we're going to spoil all of it, because it is hella long. It is so long. I'm sorry, but we really just want to talk about it. We really want to utilize all the time because Maas wrote a freaking encyclopedia for all of us Maas lovers. So there is a lot to discuss. So, yeah, we'll just get into it. So, Dawn, what did you rate this book?
I gave it a 3.5.
Oh,
Yeah.
bum. That's okay. It always makes for great book talks between Dawn and Ashley. Like and I will tell you, I gave this book a 4.25. It wasn't quite a 5 for me, just because of some things, you know. But this is why Dawn and I enjoy talking about books, because her and I very rarely agree on a rating on a book. And so if we agree, we blow each other's socks off because we don't talk about it beforehand. So, yeah, to start, I would say the biggest issue that I had with this book, along with a lot of other people, is the length of this book is agonizing. It's agonizing because there's just so much. Maas does not just like put words on a paper. Like, you have to really pay attention. So I felt like I was reading a Game of Thrones book for the first time in my life. Like, there are so many things happening. We have really just stepped outside of YA realm altogether with her. This is complete adult. Like, so don't expect to get your feelers hurt or love interest like right away on the page. You got to buckle in. You got to go along for the story because it is long.
Okay, so this is, hopefully I am going to be making sense. I agree with everything you said. So my main dislike is I think that Maas writes for her fans. And I'm beginning to think that I am not a fan anymore. I love Throne of Glass. I only got to book 2 in ACOTAR. And I won't be reading the next book in the series. Sorry, Ashley. But here's my problem with the book. She has a lot of characters, and they all have their own stuff, which is fine. And I like a book where everybody is on the same goal. Like, everybody has the same goal. And in this book, at the beginning of the book, the goal was to find Sophie and to figure out what she knows and to go on from there. Once they find Sophie, then everybody kind of goes off on their own and they all don't have the same agenda. And I feel like Maas writes for her fans because her fans like characters and they like to follow these characters on their journey. And they like to see what's going to happen to them in the next book, because it starts off as just a little teaser in this book, but we know something big is going to happen with Tyrion. I was calling him Tyrion, sorry. In the next book. And we know something big is going to happen with Rune and Daybreaker, whatever her name is, in the next book. Like, but in this book, it's just they have their own little journey that is totally separate from the main goal. And I personally don't like that, because I just felt like she did not invest enough time. I did not care about Tyrion going to the Viper Queen. I didn't care. I did not care about Rune and Daybreaker. I did not care about Fury and Juniper. I did not care about Celestial, whatever her name is, and Homegirl. I didn't care because she didn't really develop. And you would think 800 pages would be enough to develop, and it just wasn't, because it's so many characters. So I just don't like her writing style anymore. I felt like Throne of Glass didn't do this, and I don't like her writing style anymore.
I personally did because it's very similar. Because the end goal is to take out the Asteri, right? Like the end goal is to change the hierarchy of where they're living. That's like.
But is everybody fighting for that goal? Is that what Tyrion is fighting for?
Everyone is fighting for their freedom in their own way.
Okay. Well, I mean, that makes sense. I still don't like it, but
that's okay.
It makes sense.
That's what I know. And I could be totally wrong. Like,
oh, I think you're right.
But it, to me, like when I looked at it that way, then the whole setup of it made more sense. And I enjoyed it more once I figured that out.
I was just salty because we spent half of the book finding someone who's dead. Mm-hmm. And then find out Emil has no power. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me with this right now? I felt gypped.
You are, as they say, you are a survivor of mass destruction.
And that's the title. You are a survivor of mass destruction.
Yep. Well, or a victim of mass destruction is another one that they say. Because she is just, her is a right. She did not disappoint me in a lot of the things that got dropped in this book. The mind bone, like plot twists. I was in my car when I learned about who Danica's mate is, and I almost peed myself because I did not see that coming.
I don't, because there were so many characters, I honestly don't even remember that guy from book one. So when Bastian, whatever, when it was revealed, I was just like, I don't know who that is.
My whole entire time with Bastian was, what does he know? Like, who is he connected to? Like, are you just trying to be like a softie, get on Hunt's good side? Because this guy was horrible. Like, he was really bad. And so to then find that he was mated to Danica, girl who's got 100 million secrets, that I literally I was so over the fact that Danica was hiding all of these secrets, because it's like, well, then you didn't even know her as a character.
No.
At all. Like, who we first meet as Danica is not who Danica is. She is a conniving, hidden agenda person who was out to find her own bloodline and to seek out what was really going on. And she was playing everyone, even her best friend, who she calls a sister, Bryce. And it's like, I lost a little bit of trust for her. Like, I lost loving their friendship, because Bryce has literally been denied truth from Danica in a lot of areas. And to me, that makes her a not trustworthy person. Even though she set all of them on this crazy journey to find Sophie, to find the truth about the Asteri, to find the truth about First Light, all of this stuff. And it's like, but you lied to your best friend, and she had to look like an idiot over and over and over again.
My other big problem, and I could be wrong, was I feel like the ending, which was, is it the Asteri? I got them all mixed up. Who's the bad guys at the end?
The Asteri.
Okay. So they're just like siphoning life off of all these other people from other dimensions. But I feel like there was little to no foreshadowing through the first half of the book, the first 700 pages of the book. There was a little bit, because they kept talking about First Light, which I still don't know what the hell that is. But they kept talking about that, and that is a foreshadow. But there was no foreshadow to them stealing like all of their life force just to stay alive. Like, I feel like that came out of nowhere. Am I wrong?
I think you might have just missed it. And that is simply because the first book is so long as well.
But my point is that this book, readers like to make predictions in her books. And but I feel like no one was able to predict this because she didn't set this up. I feel like there was no setup for this major revelation at the end of the book. There's no theories on this at all.
I don't think there was, because at the same time, even because I'm just like, I feel like she's breaking it to us slowly, and that's why it's agonizing.
I don't like that.
Okay. To me, it reminds me a lot of what she did in the Throne of Glass series, where, you know, at first it was just, you know, Aileen trying to battle against, you know, these hidden forces that were coming out. And then it turned into this whole big thing, right? So to me, I feel like she's like piecemealing it.
And that's my problem. I feel like she hasn't planned out her book. She's just writing it as it comes along. And I don't like that. I feel like I feel like writers who write a series, they kind of plot what's going to happen in their book, and they have an idea of how a book is going to progress. And they make sure that you drop hints in book 1 that come back in book 3 and keep going. Whereas I feel like even in Throne of Glass, which I love, by the way, the first book could have been a standalone. And then she's like, oop-de-doop, I got to make other stuff. So let me create the Valge and all of that stuff. And she just kept adding and adding and adding. But I just felt like that was done a little bit better because they all had the same goal. Whereas this one, it's a lot of different characters. They all have different goals. They have the same goal, but they have their own stuff. It's just a lot. I just felt like it's a little uncohesive, you know what I mean?
No, and I think not cohesive. No, you can't just pick this book up and go, I'm gonna sit and read it. Like, you have to, she writes it to be dissected and to like really think about it. And I think that's what was happening. And to me, it's not as big of a shock because I literally just reread book 1 again. You know what I mean? Which is sad that it's like you have to like pre-prep yourself so you remember what the heck's going on, because there was so much character based storyline with the first book, and then it went into plot, and I was like, but I want more of the characters, and it was still like into plot, and then it went back to characters and stuff like that. So I hear what you're saying. I personally think it was there and it was enough for me. But I do okay with like giving me a little bit at a time. Because there was a foreshadow about it in the last book about this theory and everything like that. But we originally thought that the bad people were the archangels. And they're not. They're being controlled by the Asteri. I will give you that. It's a lot because a lot of this all gets dropped on us at the end. And then we're left with that giant cliffhanger, which I still don't know if I'm okay with that. Because I still don't know if I'm okay with it. With the ending of the book, for me personally, which we can talk about. But
I don't blame her for readers not remembering what happens in book 1. That's up to the reader to refresh their memory, and I chose not to. That's on me, and that's fine. But I still personally think that she did not do enough foreshadowing for us to be able to create theories and predictions of that ending. I still feel like that ending came out of nowhere. Even in book 1, even book 2. I mean, forget book 1. I didn't remember anything on book 1. Forget that. Book 2, I still feel like there should have been more. And I feel like that came out of left field. You were talking, and I'm not saying that you're comparing it to Game of Thrones or anything, but you were talking about how it's like, it's an adult book. There's more in here. Got to take notes. And I totally disagree.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I know this is adult fantasy, but I think the only reason why it's adult is because of the sex. Like I as someone who has read some adult fantasy, this is not good enough as far as intellect and critique. It's just a lot of characters and their stuff. And it doesn't really go into anything deeper. And that's what I was missing. So, like, Tyrion actually, I kept calling him Tyrion because I actually did not like this book. And I had to amuse myself. And one way to do that is to change character names. So I'm just calling him Tyrion. He actually had a really good storyline because he doesn't like who he does, he not who he is. He wants to be above water. He's kind of stuck in this marriage with this woman who's a big baby, and he's like a slave to the River Queen, and he doesn't want to, but he does it out of duty. And so he has a very interesting storyline, but they don't Maas does not go into it at all. It's really just very surface level. He's just like, okay, River Queen, I'll do it. And everyone's like, why are you like doing what she says? Stand up for yourself. And he's just like, it's my duty. And his wife is like, give me to tell me, mommy. Like, he has something there. It's not developed at all. And Rune, once again, he actually has a really good storyline as well. He is a reluctant ruler. He has daddy issues. He is kind of in the shadow of his sister, even though he's the chosen one, kind of. He's got this awesome sword. Like, he has a lot going on in his storyline too, but it's reduced to him and Daybreak, to just him lusting after this woman, even though he's betrothed to this other woman who's dating this other woman. Like, there's a lot to work with here, but I feel like it's very surface level. She doesn't get into any serious themes, really. It's just much skimming on the surface, and her books rely heavily on a lot of characters and fae sex, and just it just could be deeper. And when I read an adult fantasy, and I've said this before, if I read adult fantasy, I expect to be challenged. I wasn't challenged at all. And I don't like it.
Which is bad.
I consider this fluff.
Okay. Yeah. I see, and I personally would put it as adult because of the complexity of the characters. Because there's so many things.
I wouldn't.
So
okay, so
I hear what you're
just one little example. As far as adults, if I'm going to compare like a character study, I'm expecting it to be on the level of the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I expect that is the level of adult fantasy I am expecting. I am expecting a Robin Hobb, which I don't think you've read, but I'm expecting that type of adult fantasy character study, or even just V. Schwab. I don't get that here. I feel like it's very surface, like Vicious by V. Schwab. I expect that type of character development, and I don't get it in her books.
Oh. Well, see, and that's I think part of like where you and I differ on like what we enjoy. Is just because this season I hated it, and you loved it. So but I think this is what makes for such a great book discussion, is because like everyone has their own level of how they want to be challenged, like while they're reading, and what they deem to be like a really good read. Yeah. Whereas like I have friends that are like, when I read the last page of the book, if I'm less satisfied, I will give a book 5 stars. And it's like, oh, really? Because I would not do that. I would like really look at it and really be like, oh, okay, like, did I like this? Did I like that? Like, so it's just awesome to see the different levels in like how we read a book when you're reading it, And it's like, I do agree with you though. Like there wasn't anything to be challenged in like theme wise, I guess, except for like there was the big talk on like slavery and being enslaved and stuff like that was like brought up in the book, being owned, all of that stuff. But it's like
still
it's
surface level. They didn't really go too deep into it.
Very, yeah. So, because someone else had said that, and I was like, I don't know if I agree if that's worthy to talk about in it. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to just start with